Hi everyone, Jessica here and welcome back to my channel. So today's video we're doing another project using our 12x12 paper pad. It's the most wonderful time of the year, so we've made some really great projects so far with this pad, and this one's going to be a decorative item. So we're going to make a lantern. So I saw it was Helen Griffiths had, I'm not sure how old the video was, but she has a die that makes a Dickensian style lantern, and so she made one and then she built like a base and a stand for it, and I thought it was really great. So we're gonna make one of those today, but we're not gonna, so she had a die set that made it. I have kind of worked off the same design. This isn't finished, but this is my prototype, where we don't need any dies to make this. The only die that you will need that I haven't used on this is just to create a small window in the sides, and then what you can do is put a battery operated candle in there, and then it will look like, you know, it's an actual lantern. And she built a little stand for it to go on as well, and it looked really lovely. She did hers in black with some vellum, so we'll do some vellum on here as well, or you could do acetate if you want to be able to see the candle, but of course we are using our paper pad. So I picked out a darker pattern, and you can see that I've already cut up all my pieces here. I wanted to make it as straightforward as possible for you guys, so I thought maybe it was easier to have already cut all of our pieces, just so I can show you how you can get this out of a piece of 12x12 and you still have a nice sort of chunk of the paper left over. So before we go over the measurements, I just want to kind of walk you through the actual piece itself. So again, 12x12, so we've got our 4 pieces down here. These are the sides. So we cut, so this is 4 3/4 high, and then by 3 means you can get all 4 of our pieces out of here. And then we've got this strip here. This is just 3/4 of an inch by the full length, so this is still 12 inches. And this is going to be, the one bit that I haven't done on this is going to be the very, the very top piece here. So then we have this whole section up here. So the first thing I did was cut the base. This is 2 3/4 squared. So I cut that. We then had this little chunk left over, and I cut 2 of our pieces for the bottom of the lid, which is what I'm calling it. So this is 2 separate pieces. So this is the lid. So this is for this bottom piece, because this is slightly bigger than the top of our lid. So I cut these 2 pieces, and then we had just these 2 little scrap, I don't know if you can see that, let me bring my mat down. So cut those 2 pieces, and we had then these little scrap pieces left over. I then tried to cut another one of the bottom of the lids here, but this piece wasn't quite big enough. So you don't want to cut it from the vertical of this piece, you want to come and cut the bottom of it. So I cut one piece, and this is then a scrap piece. Then we were left with this section just here. So then I cut for the pieces for the top of our lid. So these are only 1 inches, while these are 1 1/4 inch. So then we got our 4 pieces. So I cut 1 strip here, and then cut these down to 3 1/2, and we had this piece left over, and then I just did the same again here. And then we cut, so really actually if I move this, it really doesn't matter here, but if I move that here, because I did cut that bit first. So then out of this block that we had left over, I then cut this piece, which was the 4th piece for the bottom of the lid, and then we had this scrap left over, and then this whole piece left over here as well. So you could adjust the measurement slightly if you wanted to make it slightly bigger. Obviously you have got some areas where you can afford to go slightly bigger with this, but I wanted to make sure that I could get this out of the 12x12. So hopefully that makes sense. So again, we cut this portion, then this portion had all of this left over. I cut this portion here, and then had this bit left over. I cut this portion and had this bit left over. Then I cut the bottom portion and had that left over. I cut this bit and had that left over. So if you kind of work it in that way, then you should be able to get all of these pieces nicely out of this piece of 12x12. And then of course we've got this nice piece here, and this measures 6 3/4 by 4 1/2. So you know, you could use that on a card front. So that is actually cutting our 12x12 piece up. So I'm going to get rid of all of the pieces that we don't need, and we can go through the measurements then properly. Okay, so here is all of our pieces that we need for our lantern. So we've got 4 of our side pieces. These are 3 inches by 4 3/4 inch. We've got the bottom part of our lid. These are 1 1/4 inch by 3 1/2 inches. So you need 4 of those, 4 of these. 4 of these. This is the top part of the lid. This is 1 inch by 3 1/2 inches. This is your base. You need 1 of these. This is 2 3/4 squared. And then we've got this piece here. This is 12 inches by 3/4 of an inch in width. If you can hear Florence, she is just on the floor. She didn't want to take a nap, so she's just playing on her mat now. So these are all the pieces. And what I have got here is a square die. This is gonna just do a nice little aperture for us in our side pieces, just to make it look more like a lantern. You obviously don't have to do this. I'm labeling this as no dies needed, but you know, if you want to just have that window to put like a battery operated candle in there, then you can do that. If not, you could just put a piece of decorative paper on top of this if you wanted to, or just leave it as it is. This is optional, but this will turn it into that sort of proper lantern, really. This here is 2 inches squared, but I'm not gonna die cut this from the sides just yet. We're going to do all the scoring first of all, because we're going to have a 1/4 inch score mark on here. I want to make sure that I get this really in the middle. So if I just die cut that from the center now, by the time I've added my score mark, that's not going to be in the center. And what we're going to do is all of our scoring. So we don't need to score our base, we don't need to score our top just yet, because we need to work out the sizes afterwards. So we're going to take the top of our lid, the bottom of our lid, and our sides. Pop that to one side. Bringing in my scoreboard here, and we're going to start off with our side pieces. So here we're going to score this at a 1/4 inch. So this is 3 inches wide. We're going to score this at a 1/4 inch, just along one edge. So I'm going to do that first of all. So there we have that score, and then what we're going to do then is we're going to turn it. We're going to do a 1/4 inch again, which is going to be our base, which is going to allow us to pop it onto our base. So I'm going to do at the bottom, so we can see we've got it along the one side. So I've done the left hand side and then our bottom. So then we've got our bottom score mark. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same again there, just that 1/4 inch along the bottom. So that's all of our sides done. So we've got a score mark on the left hand side and on the base. It can be on either side, and I'm using a non-directional paper here. I think this is going to be best in terms of getting all of the pieces out of your 12 by 12. If you try to use a directional paper, and then it might be a little bit fiddlier if you're trying to get all of the pieces to have the pattern go in the same way. I don't know, obviously I've not tried it. I'm just using a non-directional paper because I think it will be easier. And then we're going to pop our scoreboard to one side for the moment, because we're going to have to do a little bit of measuring and scoring here. So we're going to start off with our bottom piece. I'm going to take a ruler, I'm going to grab a pencil, and this is to be able to get the lid to sort of look like this and to kind of stick out a little bit. So with this one here, so these are 1, and I'm just looking at my notes here just to make sure I get this right. So this is 1 1/4 inches by 3 1/2 inches. Oh, we do need to do one score mark actually before we do our measures. So what's going to be the top of this section, we're going to do another 1/4 inch score mark. That's going to allow us to then attach the bottom of the lid to the top of the lid. So we'll just go ahead and do that quickly. There we go, pop that to one side. So we have our score mark at the top, so we need to measure along the bottom from each edge, just so we can taper this in. We're going to cut one side away and we're going to score the other side. So along the bottom, now I realise you can't really see what I'm doing because this is on black, but what we're going to do is I'm just using my T-square ruler to make sure that I get this nice and straight, and we're going to come in 3/7 inch on both sides, and I'm going to make a little mark then. And before I do anything else, I'm just going to do that on all of them. So again, I'm just putting it out with my ruler, and then I'm just making a nice mark. 1 2 3, 3/7 inch, 1 2 3, in from the edge. Okay, so there we have that mark done. So let's bring them back in. And what we're going to do now is, like I said, we're going to cut one side and we're going to score the other side. So as we look at it, we want to do this the same on each side. So as we look at this, I'm doing this from the back just to make things a little easier. So this left hand side, I'm going to score it, and then this right hand side, I'm going to cut it away. But what I want to do first is I'm going to do a line, a pencil line from my 3/7 of an inch up to my score mark. So we don't want to touch the top scored piece first of all. So let me just change my ruler, just get a smaller one. So I'm simply just gonna line up my score mark with my pencil mark. So you're gonna have something that looks just like that. We'll do that on all of them. So again, I'm doing this in a little bit of an assembly line, just so I don't miss any steps with any of the pieces. Okay, so there we have all of those. I'm gonna grab a pair of scissors, and like I said, I'm gonna cut away the right hand side, and I'm gonna keep the left hand side because we're gonna score that. So just gonna chop away this. Okay, so now we have a piece that looks like this. Let's bring back our scoreboard. And all I'm going to do here is I'm just going to take a track. So I'm going to take this 2-inch track. I'm just going to line it up, and I'm just going to score along that pencil mark. And this is going to be what attaches all of our pieces together to create our lid. So we're going to fold that over. So when you look at it from the other side, you'll have something that looks like this with our score mark just there. And what we'll go and do now is we'll just pop this together so it's got time to dry and become nice and sturdy, whilst then we do our top part of the lid. So I'm going to grab my glue. All we're going to do is add glue to this flap, so we're going on the patterned side, and what we're going to do is just glue this piece to this piece here. So let's just make sure we get that in the right position, so you can pop it down like so. So you're going to have this here. Florence is enjoying herself. So again, let's do the next one. So we're gonna okay, so when you've got all of these pieces together like this, we need to attach them this way. So I'm going to pick it up, add some glue, and then we're going to kind of bring it back into the shape that we want it to be. So there we have the bottom of our lid. So it's going to go this way here. So you can see I've got the writing on the inside of mine, so I can rub that out afterwards. That's not a problem. But this is going to be then the bottom of our lid. So we're going to leave that to one side just to dry nicely and become nice and sturdy. And then we can get started on the top of our lid. So these pieces here, these were 1 inch by 3.5 inch. So we don't need to do the top score mark, because this score mark here is going to be what attaches the two pieces together. So we're going to do the measuring in again, and this time we're going to do it a little more, because this one here I did an even amount, so the tapering is even on top and bottom, but I want this to kind of come in a little bit more. So we're going to come in a little further, so we're going to come in a 1/2 inch. So with this one I'm scoring at 1/2 inch and 3 inches. I hope you guys are okay with Florence being in the background here. Obviously she doesn't want to take a nap like I hoped she would, but you know, I'm happy with it being on the floor, but hopefully you guys are as well. We're going to do the same thing we did on the last one, but we're just going to match up the edge our top edge, our top corner, with then that score mark. Okay, so there we have our score marks again, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. The right hand side I'm going to cut away, the left hand side we are going to score, and we're going to build this top bit of the lid in the exact same way. Okay, so now we have the, essentially what's the same thing again as what we had for our bottom of the lid, but again this is just going to have, hopefully this is going to work, it's going to have a much more, like I said, it's sort of tapered, it's going to come in a lot more. So we're going to bring this one back, so I just need to remember, so we're putting the, obviously the same length, oh, let me make sure I get a camera. So obviously the shorter edge now is going to be at the top, and the longer edge, so the 3.5 inch, is going to stay at the bottom, and that's what's going to attach those two together. What I'm going to do just before I put that together is I'm going to take a little bit just off this, my gosh, all my words have gone. This bottom bit here, which is our scored section, I'm going to just take a little bit of the edges off, just so that it'll fit nice and snug. Do that, and then this last one here. So we've got that one there. I'm going to go ahead and put these together the exact same way that we did the first ones. Again, I think it's easier just to lie it down. I'm gonna just match it up with that score mark. Just that, and we're gonna carry on going around for this. Okay, so there we have the top of our lid. So if we come back to this, I'm just going to fold over our score marks. I hadn't already done that. So let's just fold those. She is just chattering away down there, just talking to herself. So we've got those bits that's going to come in here, and then we're going to glue them and attach it there. So what the most important thing is you want is for the top of the bottom of your lid, we've got your score mark, and the bottom of the top of the lid to be the same length. You want to make sure that stays at that 3.5 so they can go on top of each other. I hope you can see that. Let me just move my lights a little bit. I realise I've used a dark paper. I thought because then in the video I watched she did it with black card and it looked really, really smart. So I wanted to go with a darker one for this. So that's how this is going to go together. So what I'm going to do is add some glue. And I'm not sure, yeah, so I'm going to add glue all the way around. I think that's going to be easier in the long run, so let's do that. And then I'm just going to do one side at a time, and then make sure that that piece is the next piece over, so like this piece, I'm doing this piece, so this piece here, make sure that is sat, you know, in the right spot, actually in there. So oh, that piece is stuck, there we go. The piece was a little bit stuck, that's why I wasn't going on properly. So there, let's just come back to this final side. So these are really easy. It's a little bit fiddly to begin with, obviously, to make sure that you got your measurements right, but that's the most important thing. You just want to make sure that you've got, to get this kind of angle, you want to make sure that you just measure in the right spots. So this is a white core. You can see a little bit of that white core on here. Well, I can anyway, sort of like just a little bit there. If that bothers you, you could just take a little bit of ink if you wanted to and just sort of ink the edges. I'm okay with it, to be fair. But yeah, so that is our lid. So let me just show you again my prototype. So this is where that angle is the exact same on both. And then this one here, you can see that the top of it, it just comes in that little bit more, and I think it's nicer like this. I do prefer it. This is nice as well, obviously, but I think I prefer it where it's just a slightly different angle because it makes it a little bit more interesting, and then it makes the top of it just a little bit smaller. So that's our lid. So I'm going to leave that to one side for the minute. And what I want to focus on now is doing our side pieces because we need to get the actual body of the lantern together. So I'm going to got a little bit of tape here. And I've got to find the end of it. And what I'm going to do is that little bit of die cutting. Oh, get that off. So I'm going to take a little bit of that stickiness out of it. Find my die. So now what I want to do is I want to centre my piece in between our two score marks. Now I still want it to be sort of near the bottom. I can use my grid mat to just eyeball it, and I'm going to stick my washi tape more to the inside than the outside of the piece, and I'm hoping I might be able to, yes, fit this through my, just grab it, my Gemini Mini, just to make things nice and easy. So there we have then, and before we glue this all together and everything, we're going to add some acetate, vellum, sorry, onto here as well. But what I'm going to do now is go ahead and just die cut all of these squares, and then so we've got these squares as well that we can use on a project or a card there also. Okay, so here then we have all of our doors, and what we're going to do now, so where we've got our, I just said doors, we've got all of our side panels. So now we've got our score mark on the left, our bottom score mark obviously on the bottom, and then we've got this little square here, and we're going to take that square off, just plus a little bit from either side, just to take that bit of bulk out. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we can assemble the actual body of our lantern. Okay, so there's all of our pieces. Let's just fold our score marks, and then we can go ahead, and it's going to be easier, I think, from when I did this. It's easier to attach everything to the base first and then go ahead and attach the sides together, just so you can make sure that you get it nice and square on the base itself. So let's just fold that last one there. Let's bring in our base piece. And so we're going to add, so onto the top, and then I'm just going to place our bottom piece up along that score mark. So when you do this, you're going to make sure that you're keeping your score mark on that left hand side. So let's just go ahead and do the rest of these. So now we need to do our vellum before we close this down. What I am going to do, just before that is, let's just rub out that there. Perfect. Okay, so I don't have any thin red liner tape, which would be perfect here. I'm just going to do a bead of glue. So I've cut these pieces of vellum to 2.5 inches square. So if you remember, our square that we die cut was 2 inches square. So this means then you've got enough space around to glue it. So you want to make sure that you do this step before you add your sides together, because you might struggle a little bit more to get the glue down there. So let's just make sure that's nice and stuck. And this will give it just such a lovely soft glow. Unfortunately, I haven't got any of those candles. I have been looking out for some, but you can usually pick them up. I've seen them in the range, definitely. I'm not sure how much they cost, but they are nice if you want to add a nice little glow, you know, to any of your paper projects. Obviously, you can't use normal candles in here, but yeah, it's just going to add a really nice soft glow to these lanterns. Let's do this last one. So I'm not putting tons of glue down there because I don't want it to spurt out everywhere. So let's just turn it over. So I think that's really lovely. Again, different shapes. You could use scallops. You could use the inverted scallops dies. They would be really nice as well. But again, we're going for something slightly more authentic here. So when you bring it up, again, you're going to be able to see that light. So now what we want to do is start to glue our sides together. So just do this one at a time. You all right down there, girl? And then we're going to start from the bottom and gently, I'm just sort of pinching it together like so. What we can do then is pop it down when we're happy kind of with the placement. I wouldn't do this until we're happy with the placement, and then we're just going to run the finger all along just to make sure that it's together nicely. So that's one corner, so we're going to go ahead and do the others now. Okay, and now we have the actual base of our lantern. I think this looks so great. I'm loving how this is looking. So then we can just slot our lid onto here. Like so. How absolutely adorable is this? I absolutely love it. What you could do is obviously fix your lid onto here if you wanted to. But I thought it was nice just to be able to kind of lift it on and off, but you could absolutely do that because obviously you can still get your candle down in the center of it there. But I absolutely love how this is looking. So the last piece we've got is just this one here. So the last thing to do is just to finish the very top of this, just decoratively. So this is the 3/4 of an inch by the 12 inch, that full 12 inch. So this inside piece up here, the very top, is now 2.5 inches. So we need to cut this down to 10 inches. So I just pull out my trimmer. So we're going to do 10 inch there. Cut that down, and I think I'll just use my normal school board for this. Might be a little easier because we've got a thin piece. And what we're going to do is I'm going to score this again at 1/4. So we've got that lip on there. So we've got that. And then we're going to score at, let's have a look, just move that tape. So we're going to score at 2.5, 5, and then I'm just going to flip it over and do 2.5 again. So we've got our 4 sections just like so. Let's just bend all of our score marks, and then we're going to bend at our 2.5 inch sections like so. And then so we want our 1/4 inch score mark along the bottom, and then we're going to take a little triangle out along that score mark. So we're going to go ahead and glue our first piece to the top, and it's just going to give us that nice little lip, just as a little finishing touch. So I'm just going to add glue to these one by one. Hopefully that will make things a little easier. So again, just putting that right up against that score mark, like so. So when it comes to the last one, so we actually need to just trim that down ever so slightly. So just bring that piece in there. So we're just gonna chop just a little bit off the end, just to be able, so we just need a little bit more, just to be able to get that in line. Okay, so there we have then our finished lid to it. So what you could do if you wanted to sort of like work it out again, I don't know if you'll be able to get it out. Well, you probably will, because yeah, we had this big whole chunk left, so you should be able to get this out of it. If you wanted to make this top piece, the top of the lid and this very top piece one piece together, you'd have to work out in terms of your measurements and how it was going to work with that. But yeah, I love how this is looking. I think this is brilliant. So there we have our finished lantern. Again, just using one sheet of 12 by 12 paper. Also, if you can hear Florence a bit more, I'm having to hold her now because she was getting a little restless on the floor. But so just hello. So I've just added a wreath onto this. Helen Griffiths had a wreath on hers, and I thought it looked really, really nice. And it's gonna look so nice if you do put, like I said, one of those battery operated candles just in the middle there. This just really simple. I just found a leaf die that I had, die cut it a bunch of times, just glued it in a circle. Had a little bow die there as well, and just added a couple of gems on that. So I could have done some Nuvo drops just to add some berries on there, but I just wanted it to be kind of dry and finished already, rather than having to wait for the Nuvo drops to dry. But yeah, I absolutely love how this looks. I hope you guys will have a go at making one of these as well. The thing I would say is maybe my lid is a little bit squiffed on there, but it is a fraction tight, but I think it's the way in terms of how I've glued it on the score mark. So you don't want to glue over your score marks. You want to glue when you put these pieces together, just glue next to it. Don't put it right up against it. I think I've done a couple of mine just over the score marks, and it's made it just a fraction tight on there. But other than that, I really love it. I think it's great. I might make a couple to put on our mantelpiece just for decoration. And yeah, the fact that you can get this out of a 12 by 12 sheet of paper and still have some pieces left over, I think is brilliant. So hopefully you guys will have a go at making this lantern as well. I think, yeah, it has so much impact. She had a stand with hers as well, which I thought really looked great, but you could close up the top as well if you wanted to, rather than leaving it open. You could create an actual lid to go on top of this as well. There's so many options to change the way that this looks. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you do have a go at this as well. And yeah, so I'm not sure which project is this, project 5, I think it is, I can't remember now, in our using up this 12 by 12 paper pad. We're going to have more papers left over than what we're going to have time videos for, but I want to, yeah, use the majority of this pad. So I'm not sure what the next video is going to be. I'm going to have a think, because we've kind of gone through some of the obvious options, but yeah, we'll have a look and see what we create in that next video. So if you want to make sure you don't miss out on that, then definitely hit that subscribe button, and the notification bell will tell you when I've uploaded a new video. But that's going to be it for this video. So thanks very much for watching, and happy crafting. And Florence is saying goodbye as well.